Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to look into some more Java 8 features which are method references for each method, date and time APIs. So method references. So what are method references? Java provides a new feature called method reference in Java 8. So method reference is used to refer method of functional interface. So it is compact and easy form of lambda expression. So it is that so method reference represents you're going to call a method of a functional interface even without creating an object. So each time when you're using lambda expressions to just referring a method, you can replace your lambda expression with method reference. So inside the lambda expressions, so if you are calling some methods, you can directly replace it with the method references. So what is method reference basically? So this explanation, in spite of explanation, it will be helpful for us or easy to understand only when we see an example. So types of method references are reference to a static method, reference to an instance method, reference to a constructor. So to a static method, we already know, everyone knows how would we invoke a static method is that using a class name or interface name directly. So without using an object, we can directly create the or call the static method. So instance method is the one where we use the objects for calling those methods, and constructor is nothing but we already know whenever we create a new object of a class, the constructor of it gets called. So when you look at the static method, so static method. mm, so as I already mentioned, so here the method references. So method represents it is not a usual way of calling the static method. Okay. So referring to a static method. Okay, referring to or calling to a static method in a different way instead of the usual traditional way. So usually we call it using a class name or an interface name directly. But using method reference, how we can call is, for example, we have an interface, welcome with a abstract method. So this is a functional interface. So now I have a public class method reference and I have a public static void display method. So I have a static method which is a display method, display something method, which is going to just have a sysout. And in the main method, I'm referring the static method of this method reference class. So how would I refer in a normal way is that I'll just use the class name method reference dot display something. So instead of that, what I could do is I can just mention the class name followed by two colons and then the method name without the parenthesis. So this way it is called the method referencing way. That is it is a new method of referencing. That is it is a new variety or a way of referencing the method or calling the method. So what will this do is it will call the method display something from the class method reference. Okay, and this way we are creating an object for it, and then we are calling the interface method display, and it is going to print the output called the welcome to Pandulha. So this display something method is the one which I am going to assign it to the functional interface object. So this object refers to this method, and whenever the abstract method of this functional interface is called, it is going to reference to this display something method and it's going to print. So that is why when we call object.display, so the display method is a part of the functional interface. So whenever you call the display method of this functional interface, this functional interface object is assigned to this method reference statement or an expression, and in this expression it is referring to display something method of the method reference class, and this method is invoked and this sysout statement is called. So this way called the method reference double colon followed by the method name, that is a class name double colon followed by the method name, is a new way of referencing the methods. So this is the way which we use for referencing a static method. So reference to an instance method. So similar to the static methods, we can refer to the instance methods also. That is the containing class colon colon the instance name method. So here it is the containing class colon colon the static method name. And so here we have the same functional interface. We have the same class. You have a class called the instant method reference, and we have a normal method display something. And in the main, what we're doing is we are creating an object for this instance method reference, and we are referring to a non-static method using reference. So instance method represents it is the method which can be called using the class objects. So class object is method reference. So here we have the object that is the this class reference object colon colon followed by the method. So this method is being called using the object of this class, which is being assigned to the uh, abstract method of this functional interface. So when we call object.display, so object represents the functional interface object, and this object is going to point to the display something method of this class, and display something is going to print this message for us where it gets printed in the output. Okay. So instead of creating an object, we can use an anonymous object also, like we can create it at runtime while assigning it to the functional interface object, like new instance method reference colon colon display something. So even here when we display it, it's going to print the same output for us. So now reference to a constructor, so it is like the class name colon colon followed by the new. So the way we call the constructor is using the new class name followed by the parenthesis. So instead we are just using the class name colon colon followed by the new keyword. So here we have the interface, and we have a abstract method inside it, and you have a class called the message, and which has a constructor which takes an argument called string message, and it's going to print it. So public class constructor reference, so this is what I have created, another public class. So in the public class of the main method, I am just creating the interface object, and I am assigning it to the constructor of the message class. So constructor of the message classes, I need to use the class name colon colon followed by new. So what does this do is it will call the new method of this class. So new method of this class represents it is going to create an object, or it is going to call the constructor of this class. So inside the constructor, it is going to print the message. So when we give hello dot get message, so hello represents this is the functional interface object. So functional interface object dot get message is assigned to the constructor of this class. So whenever you say hello dot get message, so hello dot get message, so hello is assigned with this lambda expression. So this lambda expression is assigned to the definition of this abstract method. So this so whenever we call this abstract method, this is the expression which needs to be called. So when I say hello dot get message, this will be called, which is the new constructor, which is the constructor of this class message. So that is what gets printed here. The next one is a Java for each loop. So Java provides a new method for each to iterate the elements. So it is a default method defined in the iterable and stream interface. So collection classes which extends iterable interface can use for each loop to iterate the elements. So this method takes a single parameter which is a functional interface. So we can pass lambda expression as an argument. So this for each method is basically used to iterate the elements of a collection. Okay, so when we look at this example, so syntax is like default void for each of consumer super T action. So for now, let's leave this syntax. So let's see the example how it is being used. Public class for each example. So here we have a main method and we have a list of strings. So iterating by passing lambda expressions. How do we iterate using the lambda expressions is you're having the list dot for each. You're mentioning the source list, and you are just having the lambda expression and you're just printing it. So what we are doing is we are iterating through each elements of the list, and fruits represent the single element of the list, and each element for each element we are just performing this body expression which is just printing here. Okay, so for each fruits element in this fruit list we are just printing it. So if we use pass by method reference, if we use a method reference concept here, how to write it is fruit list dot for each, and we are just having the sysout statement here. So system.out, which is the class, and we have the colon colon and the println. So this method of this package is being called for each and every element of the fruit list. So the third one is the Java Datetime API. So the Java Datetime API in Java 8 has few advantages over the pre-versioned datetime APIs. So previously they were mutable, but in the case of Java 8, this date and type API has been made immutable. That is, once the date is created, you cannot change it. So being immutable represents it is thread safe and it doesn't have setter methods. You don't have setter methods for date anymore. It's only the it's only once it is created you cannot set or remodify the time there. So the more operations is that the new date time API provides many date operations. So in addition to the existing utility methods of the datetime API, they have provided few more utility methods which may help us to perform more operations on the datetime objects. So most of the important classes among them are local and zoned. Simplified datetime API with no complexity of time zone handled. Specialized datetime API to deal with various time zones. So this local class is used when we have a simple date and time to be objects to be stored, which are irrespective of the time zone handling. If you want just if you are concerned only about the date and time, and you're not concerned about the zone, then in that case you can go for a local. And if you have the zone also to be in place, then you can go for the zone classes. So local date, local time, and local date time API can be used when time zones are not required. So in the case of local classes, you can use these things to perform different operations when the zone is not involved. And zone date time API can be used when time zones are to be considered. So period and duration classes. So period, it deals with the date based on amount of time. So duration, it deals with the time based on amount of time. Okay. So period represents the deal with date. Okay, based on the amount of time. So you can modify and perform different operations on the date based on the amount of time. Like you can add some time to that date, or you can decrease, or you can add some hours to it, and like that. Whereas in the case of duration, you can perform operations on the time instead of date. That is, you can add and subtract the time, minutes, hours, or seconds from the given time. So chrono units, which is an enum. So Java time temporal chrono unit, enum. This enum is added in Java 8 to replace integer values used in old APIs to represent day and month. So instead of integer values which we use to represent different days and month and years in a datetime API, this Java 8 has come up with a new enum called the chrono units. Have so they have the enum values. They have different values to represent the day, month, and year instead of using the integer values as we did before Java 8. So temporal adjuster, it is used to perform various date-related operations. So this temporal adjuster is like it helps us to perform various operations on a date. So let's look at the example here once. So if you have okay. So here, so now let's look at the local datetime API. Okay. Uh, so here what does that do is, see, in the local datetime API, I'm just printing the current date. Like local date is equal to local date dot now. And I'm just printing the current time. Call the current time like local time dot now. And to print the current time and date, I am using the local datetime object, and I'm just giving local date and time. And now, and this gives the output where it includes both the date and time for us. And if you want to print a date in a particular format, we can use the datetime formatter, and you can give the pattern. Like I have specified this pattern, like the date should be in this format and the time should be in this format. And if you want the format, if you want the format in a string format, That is, you have mentioned a particular format for this datetime formatter, and you want that pattern to be in a format for, so this formatter, the one which you have created, right? This format is nothing but you are creating a datetime formatter object specifying the pattern in which the date and time is to be displayed. And we can apply this format to some data, some date and time. So I need to apply this format object to this local date time object, so that the date and time gets printed in this format, whatever, or the pattern whichever I have mentioned. So here what I'm doing is I'm just getting the formatted dated time. So here I'm using the local datetime object. I'm just passing the format object inside the format. So I'm just printing the formatted date and time here. So printing in months, days and seconds. So here I'm just printing. So from the local date and time, you can just get the month, get the day of the month, get the second, so, and we can print that. And if you want to print a specific date, for example, you have the year, you have the month, and you have the date. In that case, if you just mention those things, you can get a date object out of it. And if you want to print the date with the correct time, so if you want in a local date time, I'm giving current dot with day of month 24 and with year uh, 2016. Then you're printing the current date with the time you have mentioned and with the year you have mentioned. So when you run this, see, so the current date you got it. See, the current date you're printing it, and you're printing the current time, and then you're printing the current date and time, and then we are just creating a date time formatter object, and we are formatting the date. See, previously when you printed it was like this, but when we displayed it now with a proper formatter of a pattern which we have mentioned, the date got displayed in the same pattern, and then we are just printing the months, days, and seconds. And month is January, day is 18, and the seconds is 15. We got it. And printing a date of a day. So printing a date of a day. As I mentioned, you can just mention the year, month, and date if you remember, and you can get a date object out of it. So I gave 1951-26, and I got the same date object for this. And here we are just printing the current. In the current month, we are printing the 24th day of the current month with year 2016. So previously it was like 18/1/2023, and now I've mentioned the 24th day of the current month with the year 2016. So it is 2016, 1 and 24 with the same time. So this is an example of a local datetime API. And if you want to go with a zoned, let's see how it comes. So in a zone, time and date, we are very specific to particular zone. So in that case, we can go with a zone, time and date. So here we are creating a local datetime object as we did, and we have a datetime formatter. Just we have mentioned a pattern for it, and we have just formatted the date. So here the formatted data time comes here, which we saw in the previous example too. And we want to print the current zone of it where this program is running. So the current zone represents zone date and time dot now. So it will print the current zone for us. And getting time zone of specific place. We use with zone same instant. It is used to return a copy of this date time with a different time zone, retaining the instant. Okay, so for example, I have this zone ID. So I'm creating a zone ID of Tokyo. So zone date and time is equal to current zone dot with zone same instant of Tokyo. So now when I print this Tokyo zone, what it is happening is It is just printing. It is just printing the same date and time, but with a different zone. That is, currently in this zone, the date is this one. So when you check the current time of a different zone, then this is the one. So currently in America, it is this time, and the same time zone with Tokyo. And the same at this moment, the time zone when I give Tokyo at this moment, what is the time in Tokyo? So that is what it is printing here. And when I just print the formatted thing, it is going to print this in the pattern, formatted pattern, whichever he mentioned. So to summarize here, this current zone with zone same instant, what will it do is it will just get the different, it will get the current time. What is the current time in a different time zone? So that is what it will get. It doesn't change the current timing of whatever the current zone has. So pertaining to the current zone, what is the time in the current time in the different zone? That is what it will get. So let's check it, the checking period. So when we look at this method, checking period, so as I said, checking period is used to get the difference, or to get the space, or to get the amount of time between two different dates. So I have two dates, date 1 and date 2, and I'm just getting the period between the date 1 and date 2. So that is what the gap between the two dates is, that it is 8 years, 1 month, and 6 days. Okay, so here it represents the 8 years, P represents the period, 8 years, 1 month, and 6 days. So this way you can get do operations between two different dates using the period class, and going with the duration. So what does duration do? So as the period helps us to perform different operations between the dates, the duration represents to, or helps us in performing operations on different times, different time values. So here I have a local time, time 1, and I'm just printing the current time here, and I say duration as 5 hours. So you can get the 5 hours as duration dot of hours of 5. It represents 5 hours of duration. So I'm getting a local time 2. Time 1 plus 5 hours. I'm just adding 5 hours to the first time, and I'm getting a new time. So after adding 5 hours of duration, it is 20. So 15 plus 5, we get 20. And the duration gap between time 2 and time 1 is 5 hours. So the duration is 5 hours. So the period represents the gap between two dates, whereas the duration represents the gap between two different times. Okay. And this chrono enum. So this chrono enum, as I already mentioned previously, we were using integer values. Instead, they have created an enum for mentioning the days, days of months and years, and a kind of thing. So to let's see the example of this. So here we are creating a date variable which represents the current date, and I'm just printing the current date here, and I'm just adding 2 years to the current date. So how could I add it? So date dot plus 2 comma crow unit dot years. So this enum represents I need to add years. So how many number of years and what is the unit that I need to add? It's years, months, or whatever it is. So after adding 2 years, I get 2025. And adding 1 month to the current data. So how can I add 1 month? So when I give date dot plus 1 comma chrono units of months, and here it was 1 and it gets add to February here. So if I want to add 1 week, I can just add the unit as weeks. So adding 1 week, I get 25. 18 plus 7, 25. So adding 2 decades. So when I add 2 decades to it, I get 23. 23 becomes 43 here. So this way, this enum helps us to perform different operations on the date and time. And you can just mention the units or what are all the it represents what kind of unit you want to add, whether it's a month, year, or decades, or weeks, or whatever it is. And the last one, we have the adjusters. So in the case of adjusters, it's a temporal register. So as I already mentioned, so it's used to perform different operations on date and time. So let's consider this example. I have a date object which represents the current date, and the current date is the one which I have printed. So to get the first day of next month, so how do I get the first day of next month? So this date is 1. I need to get the first day of the next month. So day of next month, date dot with temporal adjusters dot first day of next month. So this will give the first day of next month, which is the 1st of Feb. So the current date is 18th of January, and the first day of next month is the 1st of February. So that is what has been getting printed here. And the third one, to get the next Saturday. So what is the next Saturday from the current date? So I can just give temporal adjusters dot next day of week dot Saturday. So the next Saturday from now is on 21st. And if you want to get the first day of current month, so it is temporal adjusters dot first day of month, so which is the January 1st. And if you want to get the last day of the current month, you can give dot last day of month, which is the 31st. So this way, this temporal adjusters has many utility methods which helps us to get different uh, different values, or different what are the operations that you want to do, or if you want to get data about a particular date, then you can use this. So this way, the Java 8 date and time API has many utility inbuilt methods which makes our code and life easy, and moreover it has been made immutable. So previously, till Java 8, the date and time were mutable. That is, we can modify the date once it was created. But here, since avoiding consistency issues, to maintain consistency and avoid the date being changed. So this has been marked as an immutable class in the Java 8, and in spite of making it immutable, you have many utility methods and many advancements done in the datetime and date and time APIs, which helps us to modify or perform different operations very easily. Uh, so this way, I hope you would have got an idea of how this date and time API is being modified in the Java 8 API. And thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching this video. And please do like, share, and subscribe. And I think it was very useful for you. And please do watch the other parts of Java 8 features. And let me know if you have any queries. Thank you so much.